My stepmom wanted to kick me out to make space for the baby. However, she didn't know I owned the house. Now, they're panicking. I'm a 19-year-old guy, and I've been living with my dad and stepmom for the past 3 years. Things have been tough lately, and I really need some advice. My dad married my stepmom when I was 16. At first, everything seemed okay. She was nice enough when we hung out together, but she acted differently when it was just the two of us. She'd make little comments about how I was lazy or not helping enough around the house. I tried to ignore it and stay out of her way. As time went on, things got worse. When my dad wasn't around, she'd criticize everything I did. She'd complain about the way I did chores, the way I dressed. Nothing was ever good enough for her. I tried talking to my dad about it a few times, but he always brushed it off. He'd say things like, "Oh, she's just trying to help you become more responsible," or, "I'm sure she doesn't mean it that way." The real problem started about 6 months ago when my dad found out she was pregnant. My stepmom was over the moon about it. She started talking about all these plans for the baby's room and how excited she was to be a mom. I was happy for my dad, but I couldn't help feeling left out. That's when the lies started. My stepmom began telling my dad all these stories about things I supposedly did wrong. She'd say I was staying out late when I wasn't, or that I was being disrespectful to her, which wasn't true. I tried to defend myself, but it was always her word against mine. My dad seemed confused and didn't know who to believe. Last week, my stepmom announced that she wanted to remodel the house to make a nursery for the baby. She started talking about knocking down walls and rearranging rooms. I didn't think much of it at first, but then things took a turn I never expected. 2 days ago, my dad sat me down for a talk. He looked uncomfortable and wouldn't meet my eyes. He said, "Honey, you're 19 now, and you're becoming a man. We think it might be time for you to get your own place." I was shocked. I stammered something like, "What? Why? Did I do something wrong?" He rushed to reassure me. No, it's not that. It's just, well, with the baby coming, we need the space, and you're old enough now to be on your own. It'll be good for you to learn some independence." I could tell by the way he was talking that this wasn't his idea. My stepmom was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, with this smug look on her face. That's when I knew she had put him up to this. I tried to argue, to explain that I wasn't ready to move out. I'm still in community college and work part-time at a local grocery store. There's no way I can afford my own place right now. But my dad just kept repeating that it would be good for me and that I needed to grow up. The worst part came when my stepmom chimed in. She said, "You've got 2 days to find a place. We need to start the remodeling soon, and we can't have you underfoot while we're getting ready for the baby." 2 days. How am I supposed to find a place to live in 2 days? I don't have any savings. I don't know the first thing about renting an apartment, and I don't have anyone I can stay with. All my friends still live at home too. I spent all of yesterday in a daze. I couldn't focus at work and kept making mistakes. My boss noticed and asked if everything was okay. I just mumbled something about family problems and tried to pull myself together. When I got home, I overheard my dad and stepmom talking in the kitchen. My stepmom was saying something about how it was about time I moved out and how I was holding them back. My dad sounded unsure, but she kept talking over him, saying things like, "You've got to cut the cord sometime, and he'll thank us for this later." I wanted to burst in there and tell them both off, but I knew it wouldn't do any good. My stepmom has my dad wrapped around her finger, and anything I say will just be twisted and used against me. So now I'm sitting here in my room, trying to figure out what to do. I've got less than 24 hours to come up with a plan, and I'm completely lost. I can't afford an apartment. I don't have any relatives nearby who could take me in, and I'm not even sure how to start looking for a roommate situation. I've thought about trying to reason with my dad one more time, but I'm afraid it'll just make things worse. My stepmom will probably accuse me of trying to manipulate him or something. I've also considered just refusing to leave, but I don't know what would happen then. Could they legally kick me out? Would they call the police? I don't want to cause a huge scene, but I also don't want to end up homeless. Part of me wants to just pack a bag and leave tonight, but I don't even know where I'd go. I could probably crash on a friend's couch for a night or two, but that's not a long-term solution. I feel like my whole world is falling apart. This is the only home I've ever known, and now I'm being pushed out with no warning and no support. I'm angry at my stepmom for orchestrating this, hurt that my dad is going along with it, and scared about what's going to happen to me. I keep thinking about all the things I'm going to miss, the time I spend with my dad, the familiar creaks of the floorboards, even the stupid arguments with my stepmom. It might not have been perfect, but keep hoping that my dad will change his mind, that he'll realize this is crazy and tell my stepmom to back off. I keep hoping that my dad will change his mind, that he'll realize this is crazy and tell my stepmom to back off. But every time I see him, he just gives me that sad, pitying look and asks if I've found a place yet. It's like he's already written me off. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, about to be pushed off. I'm not ready for this. I don't have the skills or the resources to live on my own. I'm scared of ending up on the streets or having to drop out of school. If anyone has been through something like this or has any advice, I'd really appreciate it. I'm running out of time and options, and I don't know where else to turn. Update. Hey everyone, I can't believe I'm writing this update. So much has happened in the last 24 hours, and my head is still spinning. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post with advice and support. It really helped me get through a tough night. After I posted, I was still panicking about what to do. That's when I remembered my grandma's sister, who's always been like a mother to me. I hadn't thought of her at first because she lives pretty far away, but I was desperate and decided to give her a call. As soon as I explained the situation, she got really quiet. Then she said, "Don't you worry about a thing, sweetie. You don't need to go anywhere. I'm coming there tomorrow, and we'll sort this all out." I was confused but relieved. I tried to tell her it wasn't necessary for her to come all this way, but she insisted. She told me not to say anything to my dad or stepmom and just act normal until she got here. The next day, my stepmom was getting impatient. She kept asking if I'd found a place yet and making comments about how I needed to be out by the afternoon. I just kept my head down and said I was still looking. Around 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. My stepmom answered it, and I heard my aunt's voice. She sounded angry, which was weird because she's usually super calm. She marched into the living room where my dad and I were sitting and said, "We need to talk. All of us. Now." My stepmom tried to argue, saying it was a family matter, but my aunt shut her down. "I am family," she said, "and I have something very important to tell you all." She looked right at me and said, "Honey, this house belongs to you. Your grandmother left it to you in her will. You're the legal owner, and no one can make you leave." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My dad looked shocked, and my stepmom's face turned red. She started sputtering about how that couldn't be true, but my aunt pulled out some papers from her purse. She explained that my grandma had changed her will shortly before she died. Apparently, she knew about my dad's relationship with my stepmom. It had started before they got married, and she didn't trust her. She was worried she might try to take advantage of my dad and me, so she left the house to me as a way of protecting us. My dad was in tears, asking why he hadn't been told about this. My aunt explained that it was done quickly and secretly when my grandma was on her deathbed. She said my grandma had made her promise not to say anything unless it became absolutely necessary. "And now," she said, looking at my stepmom, "it's necessary." My stepmom completely lost it. She started yelling about how it wasn't fair and how we had tricked her. She even tried to grab the papers from my aunt, but she pulled them away. That's when I found my voice. I stood up and told her to stop. I said, "This is my house, and I won't have you acting like this here." It felt weird to say, but also kind of good. For the first time, I felt like I had some power in the situation. My dad was still in shock, caught between me and my stepmom. I could see he was torn and confused. I felt bad for him, but I was also angry that he had gone along with her plan to kick me out. After things calmed down a bit, we all sat down to talk. My aunt explained the legal details, and it turns out I've been the owner of the house since my 18th birthday. My stepmom kept trying to argue, but there wasn't much she could say. In the end, I made a decision. I told them that I was willing to let everyone stay in the house, including my stepmom and the baby when it comes, but I had conditions. First, my stepmom had to start treating me with respect. No more criticism, no more lies to my dad about me. Second, We all had to go to family counseling to work on our relationships. And third, any major decisions about the house had to be discussed with me first. My dad agreed right away. My stepmom wasn't happy, but she didn't have much choice. It was either accept my terms or leave. It's been a few days now, and things are still tense. My stepmom barely speaks to me, but at least she's not being openly hostile anymore. My dad seems torn between guilt over what happened and relief that we're all still together. I'm still processing everything. It's weird to suddenly be the owner of a house at 19. I've got a lot to learn about property ownership and responsibilities, but I'm also feeling more secure than I have in a long time. I know we've got a long way to go before we're anything like a happy family, but at least now I know I have a place here, and no one can take that away from me. Thank you again to everyone who offered support and advice, and a huge thank you to my grandma. I promise I'll do my best to take care of this house and make her proud.